And I got, hold on here. Where would it blah, blah, blah. Where'd the other one go? Oh. Hey, Jim. This is from Joshua. I'm a huge fan of your podcast, and one of my favorite episodes is when you brought up the time the Iron Sheik cussed out Fred Lamson, and I want to know the whole story behind that situation. You know what's wrong with this question, Brian? He said the podcast was one of his favorite episodes, and I told the story, but now he's asking me what the whole story was.
I was going to say, didn't you tell the whole story?
I told the whole story, but I'll tell it again real briefly because it tickled me just to say that. And we've talked about athletic commissions in the past. And sometimes we get a lot of questions. How much did the commissions know? What did they let you go? You know, what good did they do or bad did they do? What did they let you get away with? Whatever. It depended on the states. It depended on the commissions. It depended on the promoters. Some had great relationships. Some had adversarial relationships. Sometimes, you know, they were real pricks. And sometimes it was just, you know, for years in Kentucky, the commissioner had the state athletic commission was two people, the commissioner and his secretary, and he never came to any of the shows. His fucking office was 2 blocks away from the Louisville Gardens. He never came to a show. All he said, he knew what was going on, and he knew that Christine Jarrett was going to send him 5% of the gate as the state tax, and was going to get a $5 license for every wrestler that came in, and he didn't have to worry about it. And there was really almost no such thing as outlaw shows back in those days, except for, you know, Dale Mann around Georgetown. And then they might have actually gone and inspected. Who knows? Probably not. But the athletic commissioner or athletic commission positions were usually political appointments. You weren't elected. You didn't apply for it. When a new governor comes in, that's one of the appointments that they get to pick. And generally that's why in the Northeast, the old commissioners up there, and they were on the commission until they were 90. I mean, they'd come in and look like they were about to turn to dust. But they were primarily old boxing guys and guys that hung around because there was a big local boxing culture in the Northeast, especially back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s with the local boxing clubs and amateur boxing. And it was a big deal. And most of the time, they'd get the commissioners from the boxing world, and then they'd cross over to wrestling. And then by the time they were around a while, they'd kind of know what was going on. But the New York Commission, and still to this day, but for years was known as one of the strictest, that you couldn't get away with a lot of shit. That's why they weren't even allowed to fight outside the ring in Madison Square Garden until what, the 80s? When it just, you know, they stopped really paying attention, especially after the riot in 57, right?
Well, kids were banned from the Garden until the early 70s.
Yeah, if you were under, what was the cutoff? Under 12? Under 4? If you were under 14, you could not attend wrestling at Madison Square Garden until the early 70s and after the riot, and they were still selling out. But anyway, so political appointments down south here, because there was not as much of a local boxing culture, even going back in the 40s and 50s and et cetera. And because there was so much wrestling, the commissioners in the South were more wrestling oriented or knew a little bit more about it, right? But whereas the previous commissioner had been a guy named Frank Scroy, S-G-R-O-I, Frank Scroy, he'd been a local wrestler in the 50s for a while because he was from here, and he'd been tag team partners with Stu Gibson, who in between Jim the Black Panther Mitchell and me was probably the most famous wrestler from Louisville, Kentucky. But by that point in time in the 70s, he was a local organizer, and he'd been in political circles. And so they made him the athletic commissioner, and he was easy to work with, a nice guy, knew what was going on, never bothered anybody. Well, there was a change in the election, and all of a sudden he was gone. And here was a guy named Fred Lamson. And we used to call him behind his back, of course, Mr. Fudd, because he was almost bald. And he was an older guy and he had this round face, and he wore suits, and he would get red in the face and almost start sputtering when everything would be falling apart in front of him, because he started coming to the wrestling matches, at least at the Gardens every Tuesday, and expected to have a lot of control and to be recognized and acknowledged and shit, right? So there was the time that he sent Christine Jarrett a letter saying that there would be no battle royals allowed because the rules of wrestling, which he I'm pretty sure, absorbed by coming to 2 or 3 shows and watching the matches. If you're thrown over the top rope, that's a disqualification, which it was back then in the South in the NWA. Throw a guy over the top rope, it's a disqualification. Should be the same way now. That way you have to do it behind the referee's back. But since the object in a battle royal was to throw guys over the top rope, he said a 20-man battle royal would have 19 winners, so you can't have any more battle royals. What? And the Sheep Herders did an angle one time with Thomas Marlin, the referee, Eddie Marlin's brother, where they beat him up after the match to come back the following week to do a loser leave town match. But Fred Lamson thought that Jonathan Boyd had really hit the referee for real and fined him $250 and suspended his license until the fine was paid. So Jerry Jarrett had to pay $250 to the state of Kentucky for Jonathan Boyd to be able to come back the next week to Louisville and lose a loser leave town match. But the best one was he made a rule that none of the wrestlers can speak on the microphone. Oh, and also there was the time he tried the double juice Terry Funk pull apart and Jerry Lawler. That was the one, I've told that one recently, where there's 18 guys trying to pull Lawler and Funk apart. Funk screaming, "Suey, pig, you pig!" And they're all bleeding. And Funk's got the eye patch on. His eye's almost ready to fall out. And they're ringing the bell and it's chaos. And Fred Lamson gets on a microphone. "Okay, boys, break it up. The match is over." And fucking Lawler looked at him and said, "If you think the match is over, you get your ass in here and try to break it up." And that was finally when Christine Jarrett gave Fred Lamson the grip, because he came around the back. His tie was up around his neck. His goddamn face his eyes were bulging out. He was red. And he was telling her, this is going to be this way and that's going to be that way. And she gave him the grip on both sides of his cheeks and squeezed his mouth together and said, "Fred Lamson, you worry about collecting the tax and we'll worry about promoting the wrestling." And I don't think we saw him for 6 months. But the deal with the Sheik was he made a rule that none of the wrestlers can speak on the PA microphone. Only the licensed ring announcer can speak on the microphone. Well, what the fuck, right? So if he was there, they would make sure none of the guys took the microphone. Well, one night I'm filling in ring announcing. And Teeny comes up to me at Star Night and said, "Fred Lamson's here. Don't let any of the guys get on the microphone." Okay. Well, the Iron Sheik has just got to the territory, and half of his match, he's going to beat up some job guy, but half of his match is doing the "Don't Say USA Hakpatu, thing. And they told him, or they're supposed to have told him, and I think they did tell him, "You can't get on the microphone, the commissioner's here." Well, he's ranting around the ring and back and forth, and he gets out on the floor and he's waving his Iranian flag and he's yelling at people, and he sees me and he starts heading toward me, and I know what he's going to do. And I'm like, oh, no. And I'm holding on to the microphone with both hands, right? And as he gets up close to me, "Give me a microphone." No, the commissioner's here. "Give me a microphone." The commissioner's here. And right as he grabs the microphone, he pulls my hands up with it, right? He's talking to me, but he didn't realize the microphone got right under his mouth. He, "Fuck the commissioner," over the PA system. Oh, God, then he does his, Hakpatu, "Don't Say USA," blah, blah. He does his thing, right? And off he goes, and here comes Fred Lamson down the aisle, and he's pointing his finger at me, and he's because he's bald, he's wearing the old-time businessman's hat, and it's sideways on his head, and he's pointing at me, and I point at myself, and I point at the Iron Sheik, and what the fuck do you expect me to do? Right, that was enough. Anyway, that was the situation with Mr. Lamson. Have we covered that now?
Once again, yes.
I hope for Joshua, I believe it was that job. I've lost it now. Hold on, I'm finding it. Joshua now knows the whole story. You know what? Fred Lamson, I have determined, would have been a much happier guy if he was on the athletic greens, Brian.
Who wouldn't be?
Well, I know I am, and I'll tell you what, and Stacy, we've said that Stacy, she has the mixer there in the refrigerator every morning. First thing I do, open the refrigerator, and there's a big jug of green staring me in the face. It reminds me to drink it because you like the fact that you don't have to juice. Folks, we've talked about it so many times with the Athletic Greens. It provides you with 40 fruits and vegetables and botanicals every day with added vitamins and minerals and prebiotics and probiotics and all those digestive enzymes. Holy mackerel. You know, your stomach could literally look like a septic tank if you don't do something for it. Well, all this stuff, Brian likes it because you don't have to juice and you don't have to spray all of those splashes from your mixer all over the kitchen walls.
Fuck the juice.
Fuck the juice. But I like it. You like it because it's not messy. Stacy likes it because it's healthy. I like it because I didn't know this, but I believe that as well as being good for you body-wise, it's good for your plumbing. Because I got to admit, before I started taking the Athletic Greens, my office bathroom, my toilet would suffer a backup at least twice a week. And since I've been on the Athletic Greens, some way or another, it helps unstop your plumbing as well. So, folks, one tasty scoop of Athletic Greens contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. I gave a different number earlier. That was just the 40 fruits and vegetables. When you add in the vitamins and minerals and everything, you're up over 75. And we all know that 75 is better than 69 or 68. 75, including a multivitamin, a multimineral, a green superfood blend. It works all together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet, increase energy and focus, aid with digestion, and support your healthy immune system without the need to take 18 million pills and potions. It's all right here. And they continue to obsessively improve this formula based on all the latest research. They've revamped this thing 53 times to make it better over the last 10 years. Absorbable natural sources above and beyond in the third-party testing, and no matter what your diet, keto-free, paleo-free, vegan-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, less than 1 gram of sugar, and if you go to athleticgreens.com/JCE, they will give you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free Athletic Greens travel packs with your first purchase if you visit that link, athleticgreens.com/JCE. A year's supply of vitamin D, 5 free Athletic Greens travel packs with your first purchase. So you're going to be farting through silk with this stuff. Brian, you love it. You better love it.
I love my Athletic Greens. I start every day with it.
You feel better.
I feel great. And Athletic Greens just reinforces that. And it's a good feeling knowing you brought up juicing. That's one thing. But also I don't have to take a multivitamin anymore because all the vitamins are in Athletic Greens and they're not heated up to be in a pill form. So they're in the raw. They're ready to be ingested. It's fantastic. I like the taste too. Athletic Greens. I tell all my friends to get it actually now.
Do you ingest them in the raw?
Am I nude? Is that what you're asking?
Well, you brought up being in the raw.
I brought up the vitamins and minerals are in the raw. Not that I'm in the raw.
The vitamins and minerals would be raw, but they're not in the raw. See, you, if you were nude, would be in the raw eating your raw vitamins and minerals and vegetables.
Surprised Vince didn't go with that. I'm surprised Vince didn't go with that. Monday night nude. But I love my Athletic Greens, yes.